Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki jai Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtara Shatashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki jai Nitil Vishnu Mahabhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai Nitil Vishnu Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai Nitil Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai Nama Chay Shri Hari Ras Thakur ki jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Today anything special? No. Shri Prithu Maharaj ki jai Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai Shri Tai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Okay. Dandavat Pranam Swarup Manjari Didi. This program is so weird. Right now it says that there's nobody watching, but I can see you're there right now. Is it Janu Saptami in Navadip? No, it's not right now. Janu Saptami will be on the 19th here. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad-Bhakti Vedanta Narayanati Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Vanchakalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Itadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Prabrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahakatara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedu Stang Sarva Bhuta Hridaya Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Shrinvatang Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasta Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptashtakam Adittaranga Madhye Kripamai tvam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste charanaravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat pranams, Madhavi Didi, and Facebook user, whoever that is. Just says Facebook user because you're watching from the Gaudiya Kirtan Live page. I mean, not page, group. Dandavat pranams, Indira Mataji, Haribo. So in the previous chapter, we read, the citizens welcome Prithu Maharaj. Maitreya describes Prithu's rule, his bodily features and speech. And then we read the instructions of Prithu Maharaj to the citizens. Now let's read, I'm just going to read from this book from what we read yesterday, verses 39 to 52. Let's just start from 37. So Prithu establishes the glories of Brahmins and Vaishnavas in order to firmly establish bhakti. A royal family should not exhibit its material prowess before Brahmins and Vaishnavas, who are glorified by their characteristic powers of tolerance, penance, knowledge, and education. By worshipping their lotus feet, the eternal and foremost person, Lord Hari, obtains the opulence of his staunch reputation, which purifies the entire universe. The ever-independent Lord is very pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and serve, with all their hearts, the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. The Brahmins and Vaishnavas who are very dear to him, and vice versa. By regular service to them, a person becomes satisfied and achieves liberation without delay. There is no activity superior to serving a Brahmin. The Lord does not take as much pleasure in eating through the sacrificial fire, which is devoid of consciousness, as he does in accepting the offerings through the mouths of learned sages and devotees. The Lord eats through the Brahmin's mouth. No, the devotee's mouth. And Brahmin's mouth. A Brahmin, by his faith, austerity, scriptural conclusions, sense control, mind control, and meditation, supports the Vedas in order to illuminate the real goal of life. Note, because the Vedas reveal everything about this world, they are compared to a mirror in which this universe is reflected. Their dust is to be carried on one's head. May I perpetually carry on my crown the dust of their lotus feet to the end of my life. One who does so is very soon relieved of all sinful reactions and eventually develops all good and desirable qualities. Their only wealth is good behavior, gratitude, and shelter of elders. One who acquires Brahminical qualifications gets all opulences. May the Lord and his associates be pleased with the Brahmins, cows, and me. Then the citizens praise Prithu. After hearing King Prithu speak so nicely, all the demigods, Pitris, Brahmins, and devotees congratulated him by expressing their goodwill. The Vedavakya that the Father attains heavenly planets through the sun has been proved correct by Prithu, who was delivered sinful vain from hell, just like Prahlad Maharaj delivered Hiranyakashipu. May you be blessed with a long life, for you have great devotion to the Lord. You have a pure reputation, for you are preaching the Lord's glories. Having you as our master is like living directly under the agency of the Lord. Your excellent leadership is not so astonishing for you, because the nature of great, merciful persons is to have affection for the citizens. We are wandering blindly due to our past deeds and by superior arrangement. But today we have been delivered from ignorance by you. Respects to the great Lord who exists in pure goodness and who maintains the entire world by introducing Brahminical culture and who protects everyone through the Kshatriyas. I have to respond to this message. It's important. 1 second. Okay, I'm just now starting my SB class. Be free. Okay. Where are we? Uh-oh. Huh. Did it cut out? Did my internet cut out? Because it just... Shoot. I guess not. All right. Prithu Maharaja's meeting with the 4 Kumaras. And once we get to that part, we can share the picture that Indira Mataji so kindly gave us in our Bhagavatam WhatsApp group. Wait, what did Jaigopal say? Okay. Maitre uvacha janeshu pragrinatvas natsvenam pritum pritula vikramam tatra pajagmur munayash chatvara suryavarchasa. The great Maitreya said, while the citizens were thus praying to the most powerful King Prithu, the 4 Kumaras, who were as bright as the sun, arrived on the spot. Tangstu siddheshwaran raja vyomno vatarator chisa lokan apapan kurvanan sanugo chashtalakshitan. Seeing the glowing effulgence of the 4 Kumaras, the masters of all mystic power, the king and his associates could recognize them as they descended from the sky. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The 4 Kumaras are described herein as Siddheshwaran, which means masters of all mystic power. One who has attained perfection in yoga practice immediately becomes master of the 8 mystic perfections: to become smaller than the smallest, to become lighter than the lightest, to become bigger than the biggest, to achieve anything one desires, to control everything, etc. These 4 Kumaras, as Siddheshwaras, had achieved all the yogic perfectional achievements, and as such, they could travel in outer space without machines. While they were coming to Maharaj Prithu from other planets, they did not come by airplane, but personally. In other words, these 4 Kumaras were also spacemen. They were also spacemen who could travel in space without machines. The residents of the planet known as Siddhaloka can travel in outer space from one planet to another without vehicles. However, the special power of the Kumaras mentioned herewith is that whatever place they went to would immediately become sinless. During the reign of Maharaj Prithu, everything on the surface of this globe was sinless, and therefore the Kumaras decided to see the king. Ordinarily, they do not go to any planet which is sinful. Tadarshanodgatan pranan pratyaditsur ivotita sasadasyanugo vainya indriyesho gunan iva. Seeing the 4 Kumaras, Prithu Maharaj was greatly anxious to receive them. Therefore the king, with all his officers, very hastily got up, as anxiously as a conditioned soul whose senses are immediately attracted by the modes of material nature. That's a really funny example. If only we could be as attracted to the Vaishnavas as we could be attracted to our material sense objects, man, we would be like Prithu Maharaj. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 3.27, it is said, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Every conditioned soul is influenced by a particular mixture of the modes of material nature. As such, the conditioned soul is attracted to certain types of activity, which he is forced to perform because he is completely under the influence of material nature. Here, Prithu Maharaj is compared to such a conditioned soul, not because he was a conditioned soul, but because he was so anxious to receive the Kumaras that it was as if, without them, he would have lost his life. The conditioned soul is attracted by the objects of sense gratifications. I said sense gratifications. That was very Indian English. His eyes are attracted to see beautiful things. His ears are attracted to hear nice music. His nose is attracted to enjoy the aroma of a nice flower, and his tongue is attracted to taste nice food. Similarly, all his other senses, his hands, his legs, his belly, his genitals, his mind, etc., are so susceptible to the attraction of the objects of enjoyment that he cannot restrain himself. Prithu Maharaj, in the same way, could not restrain himself from receiving the 4 Kumaras, who were bright by dint of their spiritual progress, and thus not only he himself, but also his officers and associates all received the 4 Kumaras. It is said, birds of a feather flock together. Birds of the same feather, isn't it? It's the same thing. In this world, everyone is attracted by a person of the same category. A drunkard is attracted to persons who are also drunkards. Similarly, a saintly person is attracted by other saintly persons. That explains why I always hide whenever a good devotee comes, whenever like a really advanced Vaishnava. Prithu Maharaj is in the topmost position of spiritual advancement, and as such, he was attracted by the Kumaras, who were of the same category. It is said, therefore, that a man is known by his company. Gauravaryantrita sabya prashayanat vidivat pujayam chakre grihitadarhanasanam. When the great sages accepted their reception, according to the instructions of the Shastras, and finally took their seats offered by the king, influenced by the glories of the sages, immediately bowed down. Thus he worshipped the 4 Kumaras. Purport. The 4 Kumaras are Parampara spiritual masters of the Vaishnava Sampradaya. Out of the 4 Sampradayas, namely Brahma Sampradaya, Shri Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya, and Rudra Sampradaya, the disciplic succession of spiritual master to disciple known as the Kumara Sampradaya is coming down from the 4 Kumaras. So Prithu Maharaj was very respectful to the Sampradaya Acharyas. As it is said by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Shakshad Dharitvena Samasta Shastra. The spiritual master, or the Parampara Acharya, should be respected exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word vidivat is significant in this verse. This means that Prithu Maharaj also strictly followed the injunctions of the Shastra in receiving a spiritual master, or Acharya, of the transcendental disciplic succession. Whenever an Acharya is seen, one should immediately bow down before him. Prithu Maharaj did this properly. Therefore, the words used here are prashrayanata kandara. Out of humility, he bowed down before the Kumaras. Tatpada shocha salilar marjitala kabandana tatra shilatvatam vritam acharan manayan iva. After this, the king took the water which had washed the lotus feet of the Kumaras and sprinkled it over his hair. By such respectful actions, the king, as an exemplary personality, showed how to receive a spiritually advanced personality. Oh, I think this is what the picture is, what Indira Mataji sent. Let's see it. 1 second. Where is it? Here. Yep, see, there he's washing the lotus feet of the 4 Kumaras, and then he sprinkles it in his head. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Apani Achari Prabhu Jivere Shikai. It is very well known that whatever Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught in his life as Acharya, he himself practiced. When he was preaching as a devotee, although he was detected by several great personalities to be an incarnation of Krishna, he never agreed to be addressed as an incarnation. Even though one may be an incarnation of Krishna or especially empowered by him, he should not advertise that he is an incarnation. People will automatically accept the real truth in due course of time. Prithu Maharaj was the ideal Vaishnav king. Therefore, he taught others by his personal behavior how to receive and respect saintly persons like the Kumaras. When a saintly person comes to one's home, it is the Vedic custom first to wash his feet with water, and then sprinkle this water over the heads of oneself and one's family. Prithu Maharaj did this, for he was an exemplary teacher of the people in general. Hatakasana asinan swadishneshviva pavakan shraddha samyamai samyukta prita praha bhavagrajan. The 4 great sages were elder to Lord Shiva. Whoa, they're elder to Lord Shiva. And when they were seated on the... Rudra Shiva. And when they were seated on the golden throne, they appeared just like fire blazing on an altar. Maharaj Prithu, out of his great gentleness and respect for them, began to speak with great restraint as follows. Purport. The Kumaras are described herein as the elder brothers of Lord Shiva. When the Kumaras were born out of the body of Lord Brahma, they were requested to get married and increase the population. In the beginning of the creation, there was a great need of population. Therefore, Lord Brahma was creating one son after another and ordering them to increase. However, when the Kumaras were requested to do so, they declined. They wanted to remain brahmachari throughout life and be engaged fully in the devotional service of the Lord. The Kumaras are called Naishtika Brahmachari, meaning they are never to marry. Because of their refusal to marry, Lord Brahma became so angry that his eyes became reddish. From between his eyes, Lord Shiva, or Rudra, appeared. The mode of anger is consequently known as Rudra. Lord Shiva also has a Sampradaya party, known as the Rudra Sampradaya, and they are also known as Vaishnavas. Prituruvacha aho acharitam king me mangalam mangalayana Yasya vo darshanam hyasid durdarshanam chayogivi. King Prithu spoke, My dear great sages, auspiciousness personified, it is very difficult for even the mystic yogis to see you. Indeed, you are very rarely seen. I do not know what kind of pious activity I performed for you to grace me by appearing before me without difficulty. 1 second, I want to drink some water. When something uncommon happens in one's progressive spiritual life, it should be understood to be incurred by agyata sukriti, or pious activities beyond one's knowledge. To see personally the Supreme Personality of Godhead or as pure devotee is not an ordinary incident. When such things happen, they should be understood to be caused by previous pious activity, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.28. Yesham tvanta gatam papam jananam punyakarmanam. One who is completely freed from all the resultant actions of sinful activities and who is absorbed only in pious activities can engage in devotional service. Although Maharaj Prithu's life was full of pious activities, he was wondering how his audience with the Kumaras happened. He could not imagine what kind of pious activities he had performed. This is a sign of humility on the part of King Prithu, whose life was so full of pious activities that even Lord Vishnu came to see him and predicted that the Kumaras would also come. Kim tasya durlabhataram ihaloke paratracha yasya vipra prasidanti shivo vishnus chasanuga. Any person upon whom the Brahmins and Vaishnavas are pleased can achieve anything which is very rare to obtain in this world, as well as after death. Not only that, but one also receives the favor of the auspicious Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu, who accompany the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Purport. The Brahmins and Vaishnavas are the bearers of Lord Vishnu, the all-auspicious. As confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 538, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yangshama Sundaram Achinta Guna Sarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. The devotees, out of their extreme love for Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, always carry the Lord within their hearts. The Lord is already in the heart of everyone, but the Vaishnavas and the Brahmins actually perceive and see him always in ecstasy. Therefore, Brahmins and Vaishnavas are carriers of Vishnu. Wherever they go, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, or the devotees of Lord Vishnu are carried. The four Kumars are Brahmins, and they visited the place of Maharaj Prithu. Naturally, Lord Vishnu and his devotees were also present. Under the circumstances, the conclusion is that when the Brahmins and Vaishnavas are pleased with a person, Lord Vishnu is also pleased. This is confirmed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his 8 stanzas on the spiritual master, Yasya Prasadad Bhagavat Prasado. By pleasing the spiritual master, who is both a Brahmin and Vaishnav, one pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased, then one has nothing more to achieve either in this world or after death. Naiva lakshayate loko lokan paryatato piriyan yata sarvam drisham sarva atmanam ye sahetava. Prithu Maharaj continued, although you are traveling in all planetary systems, people cannot know you, just as they cannot know the Supersoul, although he is within everyone's heart as the witness of everything. Even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot understand the Supersoul. Purport. In the beginning of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is said, Muyanti Yat Suraya. Great demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Indra, and Chandra are sometimes bewildered trying to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It so happens that when Krishna was present on this planet, Lord Brahma and King Indra also mistook him. And what to speak of great yogis or jnanis who conclude that the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is impersonal. In the same way, great personalities and Vaishnavas like the four Kumars are also invisible to ordinary persons, although they are traveling all over the universe in different planetary systems. When Sanatana Goswami went to see Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he could not be recognized by Chandrasekhar Acharya. The conclusion is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart, and his pure devotees, the Vaishnavas, are also traveling all over the world. But those who are under the modes of material nature cannot understand the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of this cosmic manifestation, or the Vaishnavas. It is said, therefore, that one cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead or Vaishnav with these material eyes. One has to purify his senses and engage in the service of the Lord. Then gradually, one can realize who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who is a Vaishnava. Adhana apite dhanya sadavo grihamedhina yad griha yaraparyambu trena bhumishwaravara. A person who is not very rich and is attached to family life becomes highly glorified when saintly persons are present in his home. The master and servants who are engaged in offering the exalted visitors water, a sitting place, and paraphernalia for reception are glorified, and the home itself is also glorified. Purport. Materially, if a man is not very rich, he is not glorious. And spiritually, if a man is too attached to family life, he is also not glorious. But saintly persons are quite ready to visit the house of a poor man or a man who is attached to material family life. When this happens, the owner of the house and his servants are glorified because they offer water for washing the feet of a saintly person, sitting places, and other things to receive him. The conclusion is that if a saintly person goes to the house of even an unimportant, such a person becomes glorious by his blessings. It is therefore the Vedic system that a householder invites a saintly person in his home to receive his blessings. This system is still current in India, and therefore saintly persons, wherever they go, are hosted by the householders, who in turn get an opportunity to receive transcendental knowledge. It is the duty of a sannyasi, therefore, to travel everywhere just to favor the householders, who are generally ignorant of the values of spiritual life. It may be argued that all householders are not very rich, and that one cannot receive great saintly persons or preachers because they are always accompanied by their disciples. If a householder is to receive a saintly person, he has to receive his entourage also. It is said in the Shastras that Durvasa Muni was always accompanied by 60,000 disciples, and that if there is a little discrepancy in their reception, he would become very angry and would sometimes curse the host. We read about that the day before yesterday, Maharaj Ambarish. The fact is that every householder, regardless of his position or economic condition, can at least receive saintly guests with great devotion and offer them drinking water, for drinking water is available always. My mom got to offer drinking water to Srila Prabhupada because Srila Prabhupada came inside my mother's apartment in Los Angeles. He just showed up at her door, and she opened the door, and Srila Prabhupada was standing there, and then he walked inside. And she didn't know what to do, and then she said, "Prabhupada, would you like water?" And he said yes, and so then she ran and got some water and gave it to him. Yeah. In India, the custom is that even an ordinary person is offered a glass of water if he suddenly visits, and one cannot offer him foodstuff. If there is no water, then one can offer a sitting place, even if it is on straw mats. And if one has no straw mat, he can immediately cleanse the ground and ask for the guest to sit there. Supposing that a householder cannot even do that, then with folded hands he can simply receive the guest saying, "Welcome." And if he cannot do that, then he should feel very sorry for his poor condition and shed tears and simply offer obeisances with his whole family, wife, and children. And this way he can satisfy any guest, even if the guest is a saintly person or a king. So basically, there's no reason we should not welcome a guest. A saintly person especially, right? Or is it just saying any guest? I don't know. I think it's saintly guests. Okay. Vyalalaya druma vaitesh varikta kila sampada yad grihas tirtha padiya pada tirtha vivarjita. Wait, on the contrary, what was the previous verse? A person who is not very rich and is attached to family life becomes highly glorified when saintly persons are present in his home. The master and servants are engaged in sitting place paraphernalia for reception are glorified. And the home itself is also glorified. Okay, the home itself is also. On the contrary, even though full of all opulence and material prosperity, any householder's house where the devotees of the Lord are never allowed to come in, and where there is no water for washing their feet, is to be considered a tree in which all venomous serpents live. Purport. In this verse, the word Tirtha-Padiya indicates devotees of the Lord. Indicates devotees of Lord Vishnu, or the Vaishnavas. As far as Brahmins are concerned, in the previous verse, the mode of reception has already been described. Now, in this verse, special stress is being given to the Vaishnavas. Generally, the sannyasis, or those who are in the renounced order of life, take trouble to enlighten the householders. There are ekadandi sannyasis and tridandi sannyasis. The ekadandi sannyasis are generally followers of Shankaracharya and are known as Mayavadi sannyasis, whereas the tridandi sannyasis are followers of Vaishnavacharyas, Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, and so on. And they take trouble to enlighten the household, and they also take trouble to enlighten the householders. Right? Okay. Ekadandi sannyasis can be situated in a platform of pure Brahman because they are aware that the spirit soul is different from the body, but they are mainly impersonalists. The Vaishnavas know that the absolute truth is the Supreme Person, and that the Brahman effulgence is based on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14.27, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. The conclusion is that Tirtha-Padiya refers to Vaishnavas. In the Bhagavatam 1.13.10, there is also another reference, Tirti kurvanti tirtani santastena gadavarta. Wherever he goes, a Vaishnava immediately makes that place a tirtha, a place of pilgrimage. The Vaishnava sannyasis travel all over the world to make every place a place of pilgrimage by the touch of their lotus feet. It is mentioned here that any house which does not receive a Vaishnava in the manner already explained in the previous verse is to be considered the residential quarters of venomous serpents. It is said that around the sandalwood tree, which is a very valuable tree, there is a venomous serpent. Sandalwood is very cold, and venomous serpents, because of their poisonous teeth, are always very warm, and they take shelter of the sandalwood trees to become cooler. Similarly, there are many rich men who keep watchdogs or doormen to put up signs and say, "Do not enter, trespassers not allowed, beware of the dog," etc. Sometimes in Western countries, a trespasser is shot, and there is no crime in such shooting. Oh my God! In Badger, we used to go like jumping over the fence onto different people's properties. And sometimes, this happened a couple times, where the person would come out of their house with a shotgun and like threaten us, and we'd like run off their property. This is the position of demoniac householders, and such houses are considered to be the residential quarters of venomous snakes. The members of such families are no better than the snakes, because snakes are very much envious, and when that envy is directed to the saintly persons, their position becomes more dangerous. It is said by Chanakya Pandit that there are two envious living entities, the snake and the envious man. The envious man is more dangerous than a snake, because a snake can be subdued by charming mantras or by some herbs, but an envious person cannot be pacified by any means. Swagatam yodija shreshta yad vratani mumukshava charanti shraddhaya dhira Bala eva brihanti cha. Maharaj Prithu offered his welcome to the four Kumars, addressing them as the best of the Brahmins. He welcomed them, saying, "From the beginning of your birth, you strictly observed the vows of celibacy, and although you are experienced in the path of liberation, you are keeping yourselves just like small children." Purport. The specific importance of the Kumars is that they were brahmacharis, living the life of celibacy from birth. They kept themselves as small children, about 4 or 5 years old, because by growing into youth, one's senses sometimes becomes disturbed, and celibacy becomes difficult. The Kumars therefore purposefully remained children, because in a child's life, the senses are never disturbed by sex. This is the significance of the life of the Kumaras, and as such, Maharaj Prithu addressed them as the best of the Brahmins. Not only were the Kumaras born of the best Brahman, Lord Brahma, but they are addressed here as Dvija Shrestha, the best of the Brahmins, on account of their being Vaishnavas also. As we have already explained, they have their sampradaya, their disciplic succession, and even to date, the sampradaya is being maintained and is known as the Nimbarka Sampradaya. Out of the 4 sampradayas of the Vaishnavacharyas, the Nimbarka Sampradaya is. Maharaj Prithu specifically appreciated the position of the Kumaras because they maintained the brahmacharya vow from the very beginning of their birth. Maharaj Prithu, however, expressed his great appreciation of Vaishnavism by addressing the Kumaras as Vaishnava Shrestha. In other words, everyone should offer respects to a Vaishnav without considering his source of birth. Vaishnave jati buddhi. No one should consider a Vaishnav in terms of birth. The Vaishnav is always the best of the Brahmins, and as such, one should offer all respects to a Vaishnav, not only as a Brahmin, but as the best of the Brahmins. Kachena kushalanata indriyartartavedinam vyasanavapa etasmin patitanam svakarmabhi. Prithu Maharaj inquired from the sages about persons entangled in this dangerous material existence because of their previous actions. Could such persons, whose only aim is sense gratification, be blessed with any good fortune? Anyways, purport. Maharaj Prithu did not ask the Kumaras about their good fortune, for the Kumaras are always auspicious by dint of their life in celibacy. Since they are always engaged on the path of liberation, there is no question of ill fortune. In other words, Brahmins and Vaishnavas who are strictly following the path of spiritual advancement are always fortunate. The question was asked by Prithu Maharaj for his own sake, since he was in the position of a Grihastha and in charge of the royal authority. Kings are not only Grihasthas who are generally absorbed in sense gratification, but are sometimes employed to kill animals in hunting because they have to practice the killing art. Otherwise, it is very difficult for them to fight their enemies. Such things are not auspicious. 4 kinds of sinful activities, associating with women for illicit sex, eating meat, intoxication, and gambling, are allowed for the Kshatriyas. Whoa, I didn't know that. Actually, I kind of did know that. I just didn't think about it. Yeah. For political reasons, sometimes they have to take to these sinful activities. Kshatriyas do not refrain from gambling. One vivid example is the Pandavas. When the Pandavas were challenged by the opposite party, Duryodhan, to gamble and risk their kingdom, they could not refrain, and by that gambling they lost their kingdom, and their wife was insulted. Similarly, the Kshatriyas cannot refrain from fighting if challenged by the opposite party. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj, taking consideration of all these facts, inquired whether there is any auspicious path. Grihastha life is inauspicious because Grihastha means consciousness for sense gratification. And as soon as there is sense gratification, one's position is always full of dangers. This material world is said to be padam yad vipadam natesham, dangerous in every step, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10:14-58. Everyone in this material world is struggling hard for sense gratification. Clearing all these points, Maharaj Prithu inquired from the 4 Kumaras about the fallen conditioned souls who are rotting in this material world due to their past bad or inauspicious activities. Is there any possibility for their auspicious spiritual life? In this verse, the word indriyartartavedinam is very significant. It indicates persons whose only aim is to satisfy the senses. They are also described as patitanam, or fallen. Only one who stops all activities for sense gratification is considered to be elevated. Another significant word is svakarmibhi. One becomes fallen by dint of his own past bad activities. Everyone is responsible for his fallen condition because of his own activities. When activities are changed to devotional service, one's auspicious life begins. Pavatsu kushala prashna atmaramishu neshyate kushala kushala yatra na santi mativrittaya. Prithu Maharaj continued, "My dear sirs, there is no need to ask about your good and bad fortune, because you are always absorbed in spiritual bliss. The mental concoction of the auspicious and inauspicious does not exist in you." Purport. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya 4.176, it is said, Dvaite Badra Badra Jnana Sabhamano Dharma E Bhalo E Manda E Sabhabrahma. In this material world, the auspicious and inauspicious are simply mental concoctions because such things exist only due to association with the material world. This is called illusion, or Atma Maya. We think ourselves created by material nature exactly as we think ourselves experiencing so many things in a dream. The spirit soul, however, is always transcendental. There is no question of becoming materially covered. This covering is simply something like a hallucination or a dream. In Bhagavad Gita 2.62, it is also said, Sangat sanjayate kama. Simply by association, we create artificial material necessities. Dhyato vishaya pungsang sangasteshu pajayate. When we forget our real constitutional position and wish to enjoy the material resources, our material desires manifest, and we associate with varieties of material enjoyment. As soon as the concoctions of material enjoyment are there, because of our association, we create a sort of lust or eagerness to enjoy them. And when that false enjoyment does not actually make us happy, we create another illusion known as anger. And by the manifestation of anger, the illusion becomes stronger. When we are illusioned in this way, forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna follows, and by thus losing Krishna consciousness, our real intelligence is defeated. In this way, we become entangled in this material world. In Bhagavad Gita 2.63, it is said, Krodad bhavati samohar samohat smriti vibhrama smriti bhrangshad buddhi nasho buddhi nashat panashyati. By material association, we lose our spiritual consciousness. Consequently, there is the question of the auspicious and inauspicious. But those who are Atmaram, or self-realized, have transcended such questions. The Atmaramas, or self-realized persons, gradually making further progress in spiritual bliss, come to the platform of association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the perfection of life. In the beginning, the Kumaras were self-realized impersonalists, but gradually they became attracted to the personal pastimes of the Supreme Lord. The conclusion is that for those who are always engaged in the devotional service of the Personality of Godhead, the duality of the auspicious and inauspicious does not arise. Prithu Maharaj is therefore asking about auspiciousness, not for the sake of the Kumaras, but for his own sake. Taraham krita vishramba suhrido vastapasvinam sampriche bhava etasmin kshema kenanjasa bhavet. I am completely assured that personalities like you are the only friends for persons who are blazing in the fire of material existence. I therefore ask you, how in this material world can we very soon achieve the ultimate goal of life? Purport. When saintly persons go from door to door to see those who are too much materially engaged, it is to be understood that they do not go to ask anything for their personal benefit. It is a fact that saintly persons go to materialists just to give real information of the auspicious. Maharaj Prithu was assured of this fact. Therefore, instead of wasting time by asking the Kumaras about their welfare, he preferred to inquire from them whether he could soon be relieved from the dangerous position of materialistic existence. This was not, however, a question personally for Prithu Maharaj. It was raised to teach the common man that whenever one meets a great saintly person, one should immediately surrender unto him and inquire about relief from the material pains of existence. Therefore, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Samsara vishanale divanishi hiya jwale juraite na koi no upai. We are always suffering from material pangs, and our hearts are burning, but we cannot find any way out of it. The materialistic person can also be called a tapasvi, which means someone who is always suffering from material pains. Interesting. I thought tapasvi was only an aesthetic. One can get rid of all these material pangs only when he takes shelter of the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. This is also explained by Narottam Das Thakur. Golokera premadan Hari Naam Sankirtan Rati na janmi loke nitai. Narottam Das Thakur regretted that he did not pursue his attraction for the transcendental vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra. The conclusion is that all persons in this material world are suffering from material pains, and if one wants to get rid of them, he must associate with saintly persons, pure devotees of the Lord, and chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is the only auspicious way for materialistic persons. Okay, this is the last verse. We'll be ending with this. Vyaktamatma vatamatma bhagavanatma bhavana svanam anugrihayemam siddharupi charatyaja. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always anxious to elevate the living entities who are parts and parcels, who are his parts and parcels. And for their special benefit, the Lord travels all over the world in the form of self-realized persons like you. Purport. Sorry, I just wanted to see how long it is. There are different kinds of transcendentalists, namely Jnanis or impersonalists, the mystic yogis, and of course, all the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Kumaras, however, were both yogis and Jnanis, and finally bhaktas later on. In the beginning, they were impersonalists, but later they developed devotional activities. Therefore, they are the best of the transcendentalists. The devotees are representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to elevate the conditioned souls to their original consciousness, they travel all over the universes to enlighten the conditioned souls about Krishna consciousness. The best devotees are Atmavat, are those who have fully realized the Supreme Soul. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Paramatma, is sitting within everyone's heart, trying to elevate everyone to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, he is called Atma Bhavana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always trying to give the individual soul the intelligence to understand about himself. He is always with the individual as a friend sitting by the side of a friend, and he gives facilities to all living entities according to their desires. That's really a nice way. He's always with the individual as a friend sitting by the side of a friend. The word Atmavatam is significant in this verse. There are three different kinds of devotees, namely Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Uttam Adhikari. The neophyte, the preacher, and the Mahabhagavat are the highly advanced devotee. Interesting, Srila Prabhupada translates Madhyam Adhikari as the preacher. I guess that means that we have to be on that platform if we really want to go out and preach. The highly advanced devotee is one who knows the conclusion of the Vedas in full knowledge. Thus, he becomes a devotee. Indeed, not only is he convinced himself, but he can convince others on the strength of Vedic evidence. The advanced devotee can also see all other living entities as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord without discrimination. The Madhyam Adhikari, the preacher, is also well versed in the Shastras and can convince others also, but he discriminates between the favorable and the unfavorable. In other words, the Madhyam Adhikari does not care for the demoniac living entities, and the neophyte Kanishta Adhikari does not know much about Shastra, but has full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The 4 Kumaras, however, were Mahabhagavats, because after scrutinizingly studying the Absolute Truth, they became devotees. In other words, they were in full knowledge of the Vedic conclusion. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed by the Lord that there are many devotees, but a devotee who is fully conversant in the Vedic conclusion is very dear to him. Everyone is trying to elevate himself to the highest position according to his mentality. The karmis, who have a bodily concept of life, try to enjoy sense gratification to the utmost. The Jnani's idea of the highest position is merging into the effulgence of the Lord. But a devotee's highest position is in preaching all over the world the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the devotees are actually the representatives of the Supreme Lord, and as such, they travel all over the world directly as Narayan, because they carry Narayan within their hearts and preach his glories. The representative of Narayan is as good as Narayan, but he is not to conclude, like the Mayavadis, that he has become Narayan. Generally, a sannyasi is addressed as Narayan by the Mayavadis. Their idea is that simply by taking sannyas, one becomes equal to Narayan or becomes Narayan himself. The Vaishnav conclusion is different. As stated by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Shakshad Dharitvena Samasta Shastrar, Uktas Satha Bhavyata Eva Sarvi, Kintu Prabhorya Priya Eva Tasya, Vande Guroshri Charanara. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, a devotee is as good as Narayan, not by becoming Narayan, but by becoming the most confidential servant of Narayan. Such great personalities act as spiritual masters for the benefit of the people in general. And as such, a spiritual master who is preaching the glories of Narayan should be accepted as Narayan and be given all respects due him. Okay, very important instruction. Tomorrow we will be reading Sanat Kumar answers Prithu's question in detail. The Kumaras appreciate Prithu's qualities and inquiries, and they give their answer: attachment to the Lord, detachment from bodily concepts, and means for developing it. The subtle body, its presence, absence, and its destruction. Attachment to sense gratification is the cause of samsara. Anyways, these are all things that we'll be reading tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari, Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishram Vishnupad, Ashtatara Shatashmad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishram Vishnupad, Ashtatara Shatashmad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishram Vishnupad, Ashtatara Shatashmad, Srila Bhakti Pragyan, Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishram Vishnupad, Ashtatara Shatashmad, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. नाम अचय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जाए. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाए. श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जाए. सर्व अभिष्ट विदात गिरिराज महाराज की जाए. श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जाए. श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जाए. श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाए. श्री भक्ति देवी की जाए. श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जाए. श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाए. श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जाए. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाए. समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जाए. श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. श्री पृथु महाराज की जाए. श्री फोर कुमार्स की जाए. सनक सनातन सनंदन सनातन हरि बोल. Vrindaye Tulsidevaye Priyaye Keshavascha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavataye Namo Namaha. Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyo Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. Hari Bol.